In the summer of 2023, I came into possession of an expansive collection of work and research compiled by Norm Parker in the 4 years preceding his disappearance. The work, housed within a leather box, was listed by an anonymous seller on an online auction site. It was accompanied by a note. Parker explains he had spent 4 years researching and collecting evidence to suggest the existence of a great ape dismissed as a cryptid by Western primatologists, the orang Mawas. Despite recent misrepresentations of the animal as a Bigfoot-esque creature inhabiting the southern state of Johor, secrets of the Keris craftsmanship, an ancient manuscript dating back to the 2nd century AD, describes the Mawas as a 4-foot ape of abnormal strength residing in the northwestern regions of the Malay Peninsula. Parker believed this ape to be neither cryptid nor extinct. By the time he wrote to request funding for an expedition to search for the animal, he had assembled 23 pieces of photographic evidence emanating from the state of Kedah. Parker was refused funding under the guise that his theories lacked the required scientific rigour. He decided to go in alone. 18 days later, on the 6th of May 1973, he was reported missing by local authorities. Parker had set up camp in a jungle clearing 2 hours east of Alor Setar. The land is now owned by a man named MD.
The Mawas is not so big. I think it's like a child. Yeah. Maybe around 30-40 kilos. Maybe. Yeah. Not so big like a human, like a adult.
Routine is important in the jungle, for the days lose their form here. Therefore, each morning after breakfast, I would fix the TV aerial which had been tampered with by monkeys in the night. At 7 I would bathe, dry off, and get dressed for a day of searching. My equipment was complex, and it needed to be should I have any hope of unearthing evidence for the whereabouts of Parker. Upon my arrival, I discovered I would be sharing the clearing with 3 other men: Tono, Buddy, and John. For 5 days we lived and ate together with no sign of another being. It was on this 5th day that I began to ponder the absurdity of my task. What was I really hoping to unearth here? The man I was looking for had not been heard from in over half a decade. It dawned on me that my mission was as doomed as Parker's. MD arrived at midnight. He was joined by 2 other men who began combing the banks of the river. They told me they were searching for the Chana. I took this to be another name for the Mawas. I remembered an account from Parker's files, a sighting of the Mawas on the banks of the same river the men were searching now.
Bicara.
To my dismay, the channa they hunted for was not an ape, but a fish. Blinking up at me from inside their makeshift aquarium, the channa dodged the larger fish whose scales resembled half-moons of mercury in the artificial light. I'm sure their glances contained some meaning I could not quite grasp, for there was a hint of warning in their gaze. The following morning, a local fruit farmer appeared in the clearing with a rifle. For the monkeys, he told me. I asked if he meant the Mawas, but it was the long-tailed macaques he referred to. He said they would destroy the fruit in his farm were they not scared off. With these encounters leading nowhere, I realised I would have to step up my attempts to discover evidence myself. I decided I needed a telescope. A footprint, nestled into the sediment of the riverbank not far from my tent. This is one of the photographs assembled by Parker in the years preluding his disappearance. There is no denying its resemblance. I photographed the print, for a photograph is undeniable empirical evidence. It would seem that things were beginning to look up, for the next morning a stranger arrived in the clearing with new information. He claimed his father had been acquainted with my elusive zoologist, and handed me a letter with an unmistakable signature. It was dated 14th of May, 1973. The letter was barely comprehensible. Parker speaks of snakes building nests in his mind and escaping to a place named Klang to meet the man with the spotlight. Klang is mentioned numerous times in Parker's research, namely for the large amount of mysterious Iron Age tools found in the region. These tools are known as Tulang Mawas, translating literally to bones of the Mawas. When I arrived in Klang, it was dark. I wandered for hours, searching for anything that might remind me of something I had read in Parker's files. I had resigned myself to failure, when just as the sun was beginning to make itself known, the unexpected happened. I found him, clearing shrubs in his garden, the man with the spotlight. But as I moved closer, I realised this man was far too young to have been acquainted with Parker.
In heated debates and arguments with strangers. They say whatever they want without filter. While social media platforms have made communication more accessible, the anonymity of the internet
headed into the city. I had hoped that the next piece of the puzzle would reveal itself here. But time does not slow for the patient searcher, and as the days slipped by, my thoughts raced like greyhounds round the same muddy track. How long could this obsessive search for the near impossible have continued? I remembered those letters in which you declared you'd rather die than admit defeat. Had the fear of returning empty-handed forced you back into the jungle? Or were those claims more than masculine hyperboles? I voiced these thoughts to the only person who would listen, a security guard with nothing better to do. It was he who suggested I head north again. Not so far as Kedah, but to a jungle at the heart of the peninsula, the Taman Negara. Upon my arrival in a small village on the edge of the jungle, I continued my inquiries. And this time I had success. For an elderly lady, who owned a restaurant on the southern bank of the river, remembered a man named Parker passing through the village some 50 years ago. He had been intent on reaching a cave, a 3-day hike from here in the direction of Mount Tahan, for he believed a small group of undiscovered apes may reside there. However, it would seem he had not made it far, for the woman recalled he had drowned in the river before even reaching the jungle. She drew a map on the back of a napkin, directing me to his resting place, so I could photograph his grave, for a photograph is undeniable empirical evidence.